Hey guys, welcome back to the channel where I share videos about sewing, pattern drafting and everything in fashion. On today's tutorial, I'm going to be sharing with you guys how to cut this deep V-neck short balloon dress with puffy sleeves. If this is the kind of video you feel like watching, kindly hit the subscribe button and stick with me to the end as we dive into this video. So guys, the first thing I did was to draft my pattern on a pattern paper, and I started with drafting the shoulder line. So I'm dividing my shoulder line into two, which is 8 inches, and I marked the points there, followed by the neck width of 3 inches, and then I'm going to place the vertical measurements. Okay, so I'll go ahead and mark the bust points as you see me marking, just like this, which is 10 inch, and then the waist line, which is 17 inches, the hip line, which is 26 inches, followed by the length of the dress, which is 37 inches. So I'm just going to come down by 1 inch here at the shoulder side to slope the shoulder, just like you see me doing. After doing that, I'm just going to mark 8 inches from this part for the armhole. So I'll go ahead and extend the shoulder measurement by 5 inches so we can achieve the sleeve length. But we are going to be cutting the sleeve separately as well to attach to this. So at this point where I mark my vertical measurement, I'm just going to go ahead and complete the sewing allowances I have for the dress length. Okay, so the length is 37 inches for my client, and I'm just marking that. After that, I'll go ahead and mark extra 4 inches, or let's say 3.5 inches for the fold. Okay, because this will give the balloon effect for the dress. So I'll go ahead and connect the line like this, and also connect all other lines which I have drawn. After that, I went ahead to label it as you can see me doing. Then I went ahead to also draw the main line for the length, and I labeled it as the full length, and then this last one as the sewing allowance. So I'm just going to include the half of my armhole measurement, which is 8 inches, and I'm just going to connect it like this and square up the line, and that will be my chest line. After that, the next thing I did was to include the quarter of my bust circumference. So I'm going to mark what I got here, and I'm also going to be adding 1 inch for ease later on. So I'll come here and measure what I have. I'm going to place it down like this at the chest line and remove like about ½ inch. So I'm just going to connect it upwards like this, and then at this part I'm going to curve it, but before doing that I'll go ahead and add my 1 inch for ease allowance on the bust area. So I'll go ahead now and connect it like this with my curve ruler, and then we have achieved the armhole part of this dress. Next, I went down to the hip line. I measured the quarter of the hip line circumference and added about 7 inches. Now you can make this lesser if you don't want your cloth to be bulky and bigger. So after doing that, I'll go ahead now and connect it this way, just the way you see me doing, in a triangular manner. And I'll go ahead also come to this part of the waistline. I have 23 inches, 0.5. I'm going to also make sure to tally it with this side so that it doesn't look much bigger on the side. So I'll go ahead and connect it. After that, I'm going to measure what I have here, okay, for the sewing allowance, and make sure to add the same measurement here before connecting with my pants curve as well. So after I was done with all the measurements and markings, the last thing left for me is the neckline. So this is the part where you want to choose how deep you want your neckline to become. So I'm just giving you an instance. If you want it to be this short by 8 inches, you can go ahead and do it. So I'm going to head over to the waistline. I'll be coming up by 1.5 inch there, or 1.25 inches, because this is the place where we'll be passing our elastic band for our dress. So the next thing to do is to cut it out. Remember, this is one piece pattern. This pattern will be serving for both the front and the back of the dress, because it's almost the same thing, just that the neckline differs them. So I'm going to include the neckline measurement of 1 inch for the depth and 3 inches for the width. So guys, just in case you don't want to use this short V neckline, I'm going to be drafting the deep V neckline just as seen in the picture of the dress. So I measured 15 inches for the depth, just as you see me marking. But you can choose to make it lesser than that if you want. I'm going to be using this material for our dress. So this dress is like a crepe, and it's also thick. So I'm going to be making use of 2 inches for this style. So I have my lining here, but this particular lining is called Aba lining, but it's very light. It can easily tear. so I'm not going to use that. I'm going to set it aside. Now this is the lining I want to use for this dress. Because this dress is thick, so the lining should be a bit thicker to hold the strength of the fabric, okay? So I got it from a dress I don't usually wear, though I don't know what it's called. Now I'm going to open up my fabric to start cutting. I placed my pattern paper and trace before cutting it out. I'm cutting out the back because of the neckline. Then I went ahead to notch the waistline and then the length of the dress. After which I marked the wrong side and then labeled it as the back. Now I'm going to set it aside and get ready to cut the front. I'm taking out the neckline for the front before cutting it out. I also gave allowances. I also notched it as well. So this is going to be the front piece, just like I am marking. So this is what I have for the both sides of the dress, the front and the back. Next thing I'm going to do now is to cut out the sleeve. So for the sleeve, I'm going to be multiplying my round sleeve by 4 unfold, which gave me 32 inches because I'm cutting out the 2 sleeves. So go ahead and place your fabric on fold and multiply by 4 to get a long rectangle. Then next thing to do is to determine how long I want the length of my sleeve to be. So I'll go ahead now and connect it with a straight line like this. What I have here is 11 inch for this length, and I'm just going to cut it out. After cutting it out, I went ahead to separate it into 2. Now I have 2 rectangles for my sleeve, okay? So I'll be setting this aside. Now heading back to the front part of my dress, I'll go ahead and connect those notch points I made earlier with a chalk line just to indicate the way it appeared on the pattern paper. So I'm just going to measure the line once more. So from that notch point, I'll be coming down by 1.25 to have enough space for the elastic band to pass. I'm going to be using an elastic band of 1 inch for this space. So after marking the line, I'll go ahead now and gather it this way. It should look like this after we are done gathering. So before doing that, I'll go ahead and demarcate the allowance from the length. So this is the main length, and the part where I marked white chalk is the allowance, okay, the sewing allowance. Now I'm going to measure what I have here to this part. I have about 21.5 inches, and I'm just going to fold this other part like this. The allowance, I'm going to be folding the allowance over like this, and then I'll be cutting what I have starting from that allowance. After doing so, I'll go ahead now and measure what I have on the waistline and impute it on the lining piece. So what I have on the waistline is what I am also duplicating here. I'm also repeating the same thing on the lower part, giving the length. Then I'll connect it into a square. Now I'm going to cut out the lining for the sleeve. I'll deduct 1.5 inches away from the length of the sleeve and use that to cut out the lining piece, because the lining piece is supposed to be way more shorter than the main sleeve. Okay, now I'm going to fold my lining piece into 4 equal parts, and then I'm going to cut it out using the length of the sleeve. Okay, so look at the end of the sleeve here, which we have extended from our shoulder line. I have 8 inches there. Now I'm going to impute that 8 inches here to cut out the round sleeve, and then for the length I'm going to be marking 9 inches. Okay, so I'll go ahead now and mark the line, the points, and connect it. After which I'll go ahead and add 1 inch for the sleeve allowance like this. So after doing this, I'll go ahead and cut it out. After splitting them into 2, I now have 2 pieces for each sleeve. Now I'm going to head over to the front piece. I'll go ahead now and turn everything right side facing each other. So go ahead and place your lining piece facing right side with your main fabric. And next thing I'm going to do now is to pleat it, okay? Not gathers, pleat it, because when you pleat it, you are going to achieve more fullness to your balloon effect. So I'm going to pleat it, and I'll do that on the machine and get back to you. So guys, this is what I had after I was done plating it. You can see how beautiful the lower part is looking like, and this is how the lining piece is looking like. I've already stitched by 1/2 inch. So next I'm going to do now is to place an elastic band here to aid it more to have fullness. Okay, so this is optional. If you want, you can also add an elastic band if you don't want it to gather around your thighs. Okay, so I'm cutting out 19 inches for the length of the elastic band because I don't want it to be so much tight. So I'll go ahead now and stitch it on the wrong side, which is the lining piece, okay, on the part where I attached the lining using that 1/2 inch. This is what I had after I was done. Now this is how it looks like on the inside, and this is what it's going to look like when I turn it inside out. So now I'm going to work on the waistline, which is the part where I marked the chalk line. Now remember, I gave a notch point between the length and the sewing allowance of this dress. So this is it. This is me folding the length using the notch point, and I'm going to pin that down before working on the waistline. So to work on this waistline, what we need to do now is to go ahead and fold ½ inch to stitch on this part. I'm going to be folding it inwards like this because that's what I'll be using to top stitch on the line. So after folding, I'll go ahead and iron and then place it like this and stitch the first stitch and also make the second stitch using the lines. So this is what I had after I was done stitching it up. You can see that there is already a casing here for our elastic. So this is the elastic I'll be using. I'm going to measure quarter of my waist circumference plus extra 3 inches. So I'm making use of 11 inches, okay? I'm going to use that to cut out the second piece for the back. So that way I have 2 pieces for the front and the back. And then I'm going to stretch it this way and pass it through into the casing. So guys, this is what I had after passing the elastic into the casing I created. The next thing I'm going to do now is to stitch up the sides and close it. And this is how the front piece looks like. It's coming together already. You can see that the side has been stitched by ½ inch. This is also the back. I went ahead to do the same thing I did on the front on the back piece. Now I'm going to place them right sides facing each other and align them on the neckline so that the shoulder meets together, and then I'll stitch by ½ inch and also do the same thing on the other side. After stitching, this is what I had. So I'll go ahead and measure what I have here. I have about 11 inches, okay? Now I'm going to be deducting 6 inches from it and use that to measure out an elastic band to gather the shoulders. Okay, this is what I had after cutting out the elastic band. I'm going to open it up and stitch it in between the shoulders. This is what I had after I was done stitching the elastic in between the shoulders. I stretched and stitched while I am stitching on the go. Now this is what it looks like. The next thing I'm going to do is to work on the sleeves. Okay, I'm going to be attaching the sleeves. So I'll go ahead and repeat the same thing I did on the lower part on the dress by cutting out an elastic band to fit into the stitches. After plaiting it, the next thing I did was to cut out the elastic band, which is smaller than 8 inches. So after stitching it to the lining side, I'll go ahead now and run a gathered stitch or basting stitch at the top. So after running my basting stitch, I'll go ahead and pull it like this. I'll pull one of the threads to make gathers, okay? After I am sure that my gathers has gotten to 8 inches or 9 inches per se, I'll go ahead now and stitch them together to secure it. So this is what I had after I was done stitching. I also did the same thing for the second part of the sleeve. Now I'm going to attach it to the part where it goes to. So I'll place it like this, right sides facing each other, and stitch by ½ inch, and this is the beautiful look. I've also gone ahead to turn in and stitch the neckline of the dress, and then I closed the sides to make it into one piece. This is how it looks like on the lower part. This is how the inside look like. It's looking very beautiful. So head to the comment section and tell me the particular color you love to use for this outfit. Also tell me what you think about this dress. With that being said, we've come to the end of this tutorial. If you love this video, kindly hit the subscribe button, turn on your notification bell for more videos like this, and don't forget to share. I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.